And now let's jump into chapter 6. So you should all have the chapter 6 notes page. As a reminder, we're going to try to get through chapter 6 and 7 this week. After spring break, we'll do chapters 8 and 9, or chapter 8 if we can get through 9. Did I mention that this class we have no class this week? No? Okay. So the week of March 24th and 25th and 26th, this week, we do not have class. It's going to be a project work day. Okay. And the reason for that is I'm going to be at Missouri State University. My flight does not get home till 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay. So we will not have class at all on Monday or Wednesday, which means I will probably move up some recipe assignments to make them due on Wednesday at the end of class instead of on Monday the 31st. That will kind of act as your attendance record for the 24th and 26th. Okay. So again, those 2 days we will not have class. But our goal is to get through chapter 6 and 7 this week, which I think we totally can. All right. So in chapter 6, we're going to be talking about, now we've moved away from the purchasing. We've purchased our orders, and now we're going to receive it. That second stage of the purchasing cycle. Okay. So on your notes page, I want you to think about, and you can also type some answers in the chat if you'd like, some items or tools that you need if you are going to receive product. Okay. So close your eyes. Imagine that truck just backed up to your loading dock. What tools do you need to have access to effectively and efficiently process the receiving of that order? Okay. So I want you to make a list and see how many items you can come up with. I need to see everybody that's in online and contribute at least one item to the chat. If I don't see any contribution, then you're not going to get credit for attendance today. Okay, so Diego, those are ingredients that we're receiving. Think about tools that you need to check those ingredients in. That's all good. All right, good. I see a scale. Yes. Why would we want to use a scale? What do you think, Lydia?
In case you ordered like a specific weight of something, like if you ordered like 15 pounds of beef, you want to make sure you got those 15 pounds of beef.
Exactly, right? We want to make sure we got the exact amount that we actually ordered. Okay, we like to think that our supplier is very trustworthy. They're going to give us 15 pounds, but we want to also make sure and verify that. Okay. So yeah, Daniel, you said manifest. That's going to be what we refer to as a purchase order or a checklist. Okay, good. Definitely an iPad, something to help us keep track of the items that were received. If we need to store those meats or sauces, things in a hotel pan so they can defrost if we're going to put them like in the refrigerator, good. I'm not sure. Think about something other than a spatula. That's something we're going to use when we produce the food, but not necessarily when we're going to receive it. Pallet jack and a box cutter to open up, right? We want to open every single box that's coming in. What are we checking for when we are opening up boxes of canned goods?
Anything that's damaged.
Anything that's damaged, good. Okay. If there's any dents, if there's any cans that are don't look like they're safe, okay. We definitely want to have let's see. I think I got everybody else's comments in the chat. Thank you for participating. Yeah, Andrew, forklift, but depending on, or pallet jack, depending on how much product is actually coming in. Okay. Um, anything else from class?
A thermometer.
Good. We want to use why we want to use a thermometer. Good. We want to make sure that it's not within that temperature danger zone, right? Because we don't know how long it's been in that temperature time and danger zone, right? So if it's above 41 degrees, I'm going to send it back. I'm going to reject it. Okay. When I tested up in Maine, I'll admit I never tested my milk to see what temperature it was. But I got milk in 5 gallon bags. How do I test the temperature of a 5 gallon bag of milk? I can't put the thermometer in the milk because then it's going to poke a hole in the bag. Any thoughts? I could use an infrared thermometer. Good. That tests the temperature on the surface. Good. Also, if I had 2 bags of milk, I could put them on top of each other and put the thermometer in between. Or try, if I could, if the bag's large enough, I could fold it in on itself and put the thermometer in between and test it the temperature that way. Okay, so there are some ways that you can test those types of things. Anybody else? Things that you would need? Any other tools? One tool that isn't an actual physical tool, I would say, is time.
Mm.
Okay. You need time to receive your product. You need time and focus. We can't just walk away while we're trying to receive product. So if the product does come during a really busy lunchtime, well, maybe we need to have somebody staff that their whole job is just to receive the product. So we don't pull somebody off the line during a lunch rush. Okay. So time is something you need to do, and also training. If I said, Dre, the truck is backing up. I'm really busy in the office. Can you go receive that order? And that's all I told you. Would you know what to do?
Nah,
No.
I guess.
You could, yeah, you could guess. And hopefully you would guess correctly. But if you don't guess correctly, then product could spoil, product could go bad, product could be placed in the places that it shouldn't be. And then if it goes bad, then we have to throw it away. Or you're like, you know what? I really don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna leave it right here, and then I'll come back and take care of it, right? And so if somebody is not trained properly on the process of receiving, then they may make a mistake. Once we sign that document with that delivery driver, we've paid for all of those ingredients. We can't call them back up and say, hey, tomorrow the next day after delivery comes in and say, hey, this fish doesn't smell good. I need you to come take it back. Sorry, you're paying for it. You should have caught that at the time that you received the order. Okay. So things like we want to make sure that the like fresh fish, their eyes are clear, they're not cloudy, there's not a really strong fishy smell. We want to look for things like frost. What are some indications on frost around the ice cream containers? What is that indication to you as someone who's receiving that product?
It's melted and then been refrozen.
Exactly. So it's thawed out, it's got that condensation on the outside, and then it's been refrozen. So that condensation has frozen and become frosty. I used to think as a kid like that was the coolest, ice cream. Now I realize it's probably not the healthiest, the safest ice cream because it has cooled down and then it's been refrozen, right? So that's not a good situation. All right, so employee training is important. We also want to talk about managing our delivery schedules. If at all possible, we want to try to not have our deliveries during our lunch rush. So when I was a cook up in Maine, there was one summer I went back, I had a new delivery driver. And every day, breakfast was at, I think at 8, between 8 to 9, breakfast was 8 to 9. So I'm feeding 60 people breakfast. And so on one 6 foot table, I'm feeding them breakfast in a buffet line. The other 6 foot table, I have 60 people coming up to make sandwiches during lunch or during breakfast. They're going to eat later on. Okay. So it's pretty hectic. I can't step away and start receiving product. And so this delivery driver, I'd hear him back up and I go out to the back and just say, hey, I'm getting ready to feed breakfast. Could you go to your next stop and come on back? All right. Said, sure, why not? So he did that. And the next week at 8:15, I'm in the middle of serving breakfast and I hear the truck back up. So I go back out there, say, hey, do you mind coming back after your next stop? Okay. The third time, third week, he comes after breakfast. And so what did I do? I made him a sandwich. I gave him some dessert left over from the night before. Wrote a big thank you for, hey, thanks for coming in after breakfast. Thanks for coming in after 9 o'clock. Um, and guess what? Never had any issues after that. He remembered to come in after 9 o'clock. So managing those delivery schedules and maintaining those positive relationships um, with your delivery drivers is really important. It was also cool because he knew where my dry storage was. He knew what products went all the way back to my dry storage. So like all the big 50-pound bags of flour, 25-pound bags of sugar. I have to carry all that stuff back because he would do that for me. Now, if I was a jerk, he probably wouldn't want to help me out any, right? And so maintaining those positive relationships is really important. We also want to talk about how we handle any discrepancies. So if it says on our order form that we received it, but it's not here, and or we send it back, we want to send that back on a credit memo. So a credit memo is essentially a list of things that we've sent back. Now, a lot of times this is going to be in a digital format. It's not going to be like in an actual form. A lot of times now, because everything is digital, but there are people that still will do a physical form for a credit memo. We want to notate why we sent it back. Okay. Why specifically are we rejecting it? This is going to go to our accounting office, our accounting department, so that way they know when they get an invoice for all this product from Benny Keith, they're going to look at their credit memos to make sure that these things have been taken off of that invoice before they pay it. Otherwise, if they're not paying attention, they're not paying attention, they could potentially just pay for the ingredients, pay for the invoice, and now they've paid for stuff that we've actually sent back. Okay. Let me tell you a quick story about two quick stories about discrepancies and training and time. So there was one summer in Maine. I received my orders on Wednesdays. Okay. There was one Wednesday, it was beautiful. It was like 50 degrees outside in July. It was amazing. Maybe not 50, maybe it was like 65 or 70. Okay. It maybe gets up to 80 degrees on 4th of July weekend. So it's very cool, right? And I'm like, I want to go hiking. I want to go climb all the mountains in the national park. I want to get out there. So my delivery comes in, and then during this delivery time, I got a new product for popsicles. I want to try these new popsicles, see if I liked them based on the old versus the old ones. But I don't know how many of y'all are like me. I can't eat a popsicle right out of the freezer. Like it has to defrost for a minute because my teeth are like when that freezing cold popsicle like hits my teeth and like it's like nails on a chalkboard type sound. Ugh, I don't like it. All right. So I set it down on the counter while I put the rest of my order away. And then I went for my hike. And I came back and there was my order form and it was all red. It was stained red. And I was like, man, somebody spilled Kool-Aid on my order form. And I was so mad for about a half a second. And then I realized I left my popsicle on my order form, and that's what melted. And so not only did this person was so nice, they not only did they catch my mistake, they actually cleaned up my mistake for me. So then I was really appreciative. But because I was distracted with wanting to go hiking, like that could have easily have been like a box of something that had to be in the freezer. And then if it defrosted and melted, then it would be totally wasted, right? Luckily, it was just one little popsicle. So focus is so important. Other thing about discrepancies. This one time I wanted to order popcorn chicken because it was on special. I want to try it out. The older students that come to this camp, they come to the camp multiple years in a row. And every other Saturday night is always chicken nugget night because it's my night off. So the staff just does chicken nuggets and tater tots. It's easy for them to make, right? And I thought, well, for these older kids, let me try popcorn chicken. They may appreciate something new and different. So again, I wanted to go hiking. And so I got this box, and on the box, the sticker said popcorn chicken. But in big red letters, it said frozen seafood. And I had a little Jessica Simpson moment. I was like, tuna is the chicken of the sea. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to put this in the freezer. I want to go hiking. It's frozen. I'll put it in the freezer. And then about a week and a half later, I'm like, I'm the cook. I'm gonna go test out this popcorn chicken. It's a pretty small box. I was like, this is what I paid for popcorn chicken. That's kind of weird. I open it up and it's individually 2-pound bags of frozen lobster meat. So I got 12 pounds of lobster meat that I paid $18.98 for because it was on special because I paid it for the chicken, the popcorn chicken. So the warehouse put the sticker on the wrong box. So when they scanned it, the scanner says popcorn chicken. But in reality, it was a box of lobster meat. So I called my boss, or I'm not my boss, I called my boss and asked her what I should do. And then I called my rep and I said, what do you want to do? I have $120 worth of lobster meat that I paid 20 bucks for. And he's like, honestly, David, you are like one of 10 people that would actually call and tell us that we made a mistake. Somebody else that is expecting to get lobster probably got your popcorn chicken. And he's like, so you definitely got the better end of the deal. And so, how about this? Like, because at the same time, it was the end of the summer. So I was sending back like gallons of salad dressing I didn't use. He's like, how about this? Instead of me having to process all of the paperwork for the returns, why don't we just call it even? And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I made like lobster stuff for this. I didn't have enough to make it for the students, but I made lobster stuff for the staff. But that's why we always want to check and focus to make sure that we're receiving the product that we should actually receive. Okay. All right. So credit memo form, physical inventory versus perpetual inventory. Physical is what I can actually physically see and count. Okay. Perpetual is always constantly updating. So if I have, let's say, 35 steaks, every time a server enters a steak in my POS, okay, it's going to perpetually update to where eventually I'm going to be out of steaks. Okay. Now, physically, I can go in and double check, am I really actually out of steaks? Okay. So that's what we're going to work on this next part of our notes page. The difference between physical and perpetual. Ideally, these two numbers should match. Okay. They don't always match, but they should match. Okay. So what we have to do is we want to figure out what the variance or the difference is between what we should have, that's our perpetual, and what we physically have, that's our physical inventory. Okay. So for our first example, do I have them on here? I do, yes. Okay. My first example, I start with 10 items. Okay. I purchased 35. So I'm going to add that number. Okay. And 10 and 35 is what? 45. Okay. Now I issued, meaning I sent 37 of these items out of my kitchen. Okay. So I'm going to subtract those 37 that I issued. And what is my answer?
8.
8. So my actual ending, that's the physical, 8 minus 8 is 0. Sorry, it's a 0. Which means they match. Perfect example. Okay. I should have 8. My perpetual tells me I should have 8. I have 8. Excellent. No product is missing. Okay. Let's do the next one. Our opening inventory is 0. What is 0 plus 55? 55. Okay. Now I issued 47. So I'm going to subtract those 47. And I'm going to have 8. So my perpetual says I should have 8. Now my physical, I have 5. So what is 5 minus 8?
-3.
-3. What does that number mean? What does that number -3 mean?
Physically missing 3 steaks.
I'm physically missing 3 products, 3 items. So if we're talking about steaks, I'm missing 3 steaks. What do I got to do? I got to find out where it went.
I got hungry.
Okay. Yeah, the staff got hungry. Hopefully that's not the case. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in a later chapter, as far as how we record all of these missing items and how we investigate what it is. Today we're just focusing on just the math itself. Okay. So go ahead and do the next one on your own and see what your variance is. So see what your variance is. And you can type your answer in the chat. All right, it is -1. 25 plus 15 is 40. Subtract 38. We have 2. So 1 minus 2 is a -1. We have to do the physical, minus the perpetual, because that's going to tell us whether we're missing or if we have extra. Okay. Something else we can take into consideration is we can cost out and figure out what the cost of our actual inventory is while it's in our inventory. This is what's called totaling and extending. Okay. So when we extend, we basically talk about how many we have in count. We multiply it by the price. And then this portion is called extending. How many we have and what is our total for that one item? So we extend it and then we total it out. So for this particular inventory for my dairy, looks like we have $607.31 in dairy. Okay. This is our physical inventory. This is where we get our ending inventory. Does this look somewhat familiar? Somewhat familiar. Beginning inventory plus weekly purchases is our total available inventory. And then we subtract our ending inventory to get our cost of goods sold. Okay? We covered this very quickly in a previous chapter. Cost of goods sold. Again, why did we take out the ending inventory? Why do we have to subtract that?
Stuff you didn't use.
It's stuff we haven't used yet, right? And this is the cost of goods sold. We haven't sold it yet. It's still in our inventory. So we think about back to chapter 2, I believe. Food only becomes part of our food costs when it's used in the production of food. Okay? If it's not in production, if it's still in our inventory, that means we haven't sold that product yet. So that's why we have to subtract that ending inventory. So for your notes page, our cost of goods sold formula is beginning inventory plus purchases is equal to our total available inventory. And then your total available inventory minus the ending inventory is your cost of goods sold. Okay? We need this answer of cost of goods sold to figure out the next two formulas. Okay? How do we find the average of anything? Add them all together and then divide by how many we have, right? So in this case, to find our average inventory, we're going to take our beginning inventory plus our ending inventory. And we're going to divide by what? By 2. Because we have two numbers. Exactly. So beginning inventory plus the ending inventory divided by 2 is our formula for the average inventory. It's on the back side of your page for your notes. Okay. And then our inventory turnover. This is going to be our cost of goods sold divided by the average inventory. Our cost of goods sold divided by our average inventory. Okay, so let's do our first example up here we see on the board. Okay. We're going to fill in the information on your notes page. $1,500 plus $2,500. What is my total? $4,000. That is my total available inventory, which means during that monthly period or weekly or whatever it is, during that time period, I had a total of $4,000 worth of ingredients. Okay. But I subtract my 500, the cost of the goods that I actually sold was only 3,500. Okay. Because again, that $500 is not part of my food cost yet. I haven't used it to produce food for the recipes for the menu. Okay. So my actual cost of goods sold is $3,500. Okay. Questions so far on that? Now let's take a look at our average inventory. Our average inventory, we have $1,500 for our beginning plus our ending of $500. That equals what? 1,500 plus 500 is $2,000. That means on average, okay, divide that by 2. And on average, we had about $1,000 in inventory. Okay, at any particular time, on average, about $1,000.
Is this part of the, for example, one or?
Yeah, this is part of example 1. Okay. So now let's go back to our cost of goods sold and our average inventory. If our cost of goods sold is 3,500 and my average inventory is $1,000. If I divide those two numbers, what do I get? 3.5. This is our inventory turnover. What does the word turnover mean? Well, first of all, how many of you have heard the word turnover? What sense have you heard when we talk about turnover? What sense or what way do you hear that we talk about turnover?
Apple.
What's that?
An
It was a
apple
joke, I said apple
turnover.
turnover.
Oh, apple turnover. Okay, yes. Yes, we do have turnovers as a pastry item. Yes. But we're not talking about those apple turnovers.
Period of time to another.
Yeah, so we're talking about how things change from one period of time to another. So we talk about employee turnover. What does that mean?
How quickly you're replacing employees.
Somebody leaves and we have to replace that person. That's the employee turnover. As a server, I talk about the turnover on my tables. How fast can I get somebody in and out of my table so I can make more money? Okay. Of course, I don't want to rush them. I don't want them to feel rushed. But when I worked at Cheesecake Factory, we have like a 20-page menu, right? So for me to increase or decrease my time, increase my turnover rate, as soon as they sat down, I did my little spiel and I was like, hey, pizzas are on page 11, salads are on page 12, sandwiches on page 14. That way people are flipping to the exact page of what they're in the mood to eat. And they're not flipping aimlessly through a menu that has 200 items in it. Okay. So what this 3.5 means is we turned our inventory over 3.5 times during this period. That does not mean that we got rid of everything and then replaced it. Okay. Of course, some things we replace faster. Fresh goods we replace faster. Frozen things or canned goods have a longer shelf life, so we don't replace them as quickly. But on average, we did our turnover about 3.5 times. Okay. There is no industry standard. Okay. There is no industry standard. It all depends on what your menu is. If you are doing farm to table, you're probably going to have a high turnover rate because you're getting fresh product in more frequently. If you're working at like Fred's Fish Fry and it's just frozen fish patties and frozen whatever, you can order a lot of product, let it set in the freezer, and then use it up as you need to. So you might have a lower turnover rate. So now let's take a look at example number 2. What is our beginning inventory for example number 2? How do we find the beginning inventory?
The ending inventory.
It's the ending inventory for example number 1. Whatever we ended on that last day, hopefully we haven't lost any product. So this would be $500 from example number 1. Okay. So our beginning inventory for the next period is the ending inventory for the period before.
Oh, these two problems connected?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's
Yep.
what you go.
So we add these together. Our total available inventory is $5,000. This time, we have an ending inventory of 2,500. So the cost of goods sold is only $2,500. What does that tell me as a manager? Compared to last month, where it was $3,500, I wasn't as busy. Maybe I ordered a lot of product because it's going to be spring break, and then it rained every single day of spring break. I ordered all my product to get ready for this big rush that never happened, right? Hopefully, part of this $2,500 of ending inventory is stuff that's not going to go bad and we could use it again on the next time, okay? So our average inventory in our last few minutes together, average inventory, $500 plus 2,500 is 3,000 divided by that 2. So we have an average inventory this time of 1,500. That means we had, on average, $500 more worth of inventory sitting in our storage, okay? And then our inventory turnover, cost of goods sold, 2,500 divided by 1,500 is what? 1.67,
6, 7.
okay? That means I did not turn my inventory as fast. I had a lot more inventory in my product, in my storage. What is an issue about having a lot of inventory in our storage?
Can go bad.
It can go bad. What else? You can grow legs and walk right out the door. Okay. So if our employees, if we're not doing this physical inventory, and that's what I meant by growing legs.
I was like,
I mean, our employees are going to take it. Not that we're physically growing legs. We're not that kind of like biological scientific lab. We're not doing those kinds of crazy experiments, right? But that just means if it's there, then people are like, hey, you know what? I got a family barbecue this weekend. I don't have time to run to Sam's to get my frozen hamburger patties, and there's like 3 cases in there. I'm just gonna grab a bag. They're not gonna mind. They're not gonna miss it because they got 3 cases in there. Okay, so if we are not taking that physical inventory on a regular basis, if we are not doing this type of checking, today it might be 1 item that goes missing. And if you're not checking, and your staff knows that you're not checking, that 1 item can turn into 3 items. Then it can turn into a really bad situation. I'll give you one last story in the last 2 minutes of class. This is an admission. I'm going to stop recording so nobody can use this against me. Just kidding. It's not that bad. It's just Red Bull.